As a light rushes through space, an alien flies at an incredible speed and eventually crashes on New Mexico. His body goes through a painful transformation to take on a human form before he goes wandering without any clothes on. He makes it to a garage and grabs a hose to drink some water, causing the owner to threaten him with his gun and call the police. When the cops arrive, they have to remove the hose from the alien's mouth and are shocked by how much he had inside. The alien uses some random English words to respond and the cops take it as an insult, so they tase him down. Later at the police station, the alien answers questions with his mission number and saying he comes from space, so the cop thinks he's crazy. When she picks up a call, his alien hearing allows him to hear the other side and repeat it all. He also sees the name Faraday on the officer's patch and takes it as his own. The cop notices he has no fingerprints and wants to know who can pick him up, so he answers Justin Falls. Meanwhile, Justin is getting ready for work at a toxic waste disposal facility. She used to be a scientist, but now she needs the money to take care of her daughter Molly and her sick father Josiah, to the point she has to buy medicine from a dealer. One morning, she gets a call from the police station and she rushes there, but she doesn't recognize Faraday. Suddenly he starts quoting her scientific paper, then he changes his voice to quote a man telling him to find Justin because she was the closest one to the truth. Justin ends up vouching for him, so the cop releases him, and Faraday steals a phone on his way out. The officer then notices the handcuffs are bent. Moments later, Faraday finds a pawn shop, so he starts throwing up a bunch of gold rings that he quickly sells. He also buys some electronics that he puts together to create a new device. Afterward, he uses this device while walking down the road, and when he sees some dark clouds, he remembers his home planet and some huge machines. At that moment, two robbers find him and start beating him up. Luckily, Justin passes by and stops to help, shooting her gun in the air to make the robbers back off. However, a gust of wind distracts her and the robbers jump on her. A fight ensues and the gun falls, so Faraday picks it up and starts shooting randomly, causing the robbers to run away. After giving Justin the gun, Faraday picks up his device, worried because it's now broken and he needs to receive a message. He offers Justin some money and she agrees to take him to the coordinates he keeps repeating. During the trip, Faraday keeps dreaming of his home planet and his people. Eventually they stop at a gas station and Faraday happily inserts his head inside a water container. There are horses nearby and he's amazed to see them calm because on his planet they're predators. The duo keeps going and Faraday suddenly starts quoting Justin's father, making her believe he's mocking him. Sometime later they stop at a diner and Justin teaches Faraday some manners while telling everyone else that he's on the spectrum to avoid attention. Then he writes a very advanced equation on a napkin and claims he was taught by a man called Thomas Newton, founder of World Enterprises. Faraday explains Thomas sent him to find Justin because she's important for his mission. At that moment the dealer comes in and Justin tries to buy from him, but Faraday keeps interrupting her, so they leave. Eventually they make it to the coordinates and Faraday explains he has a family, but he isn't sure if they've survived because his planet Anthea is dying and soon the same will happen to Earth. Justin is supposed to help him ensure the survival of his species, so he's waiting for his next instructions to take her back. Thinking he's crazy, Justin rushes back to her truck and keeps him at bay with her gun before driving away. Suddenly dark clouds take over the sky and start forming a tornado. Justin sees Faraday walking toward it and tries to save him, but he doesn't hear her. He just enters the tornado while Justin hides inside her truck for safety. Inside the tornado, a bright light appears and teleports Faraday to a jungle. There he finds Thomas Newton, who is also an alien, and explains this jungle is a dream he's using to communicate. Faraday accuses him of abandoning their people and points out only a few thousand are left, but Thomas only laughs. He's been on Earth for over 40 years and has learned that to save Anthea he must introduce humans to it. Thomas also reveals they've stolen his company Origen, so Faraday must take it back to proceed with the plan using Justin's help. On New Mexico, Justin's truck continues to shake until the tornado finally disappears. Then Faraday appears in front of her showing his real skin and repeating Origen, so a terrified Justin drives away. Faraday walks back to the diner and starts drinking water from random glasses. The waitress calms him down and helps him search for Origen on the internet, learning that it's a tech company in Seattle. Faraday suddenly tells her that she's pregnant and that she must help the world for her baby, causing her to get scared and slap him before running away. Meanwhile in Virginia, CIA agent Clay has dinner with his foster mother and boss Finch, who shares the files about the strange tornado. They detected a broadcasting signal inside it that matches a signal from a 45-year-old case on the same location, so they suspect it may be terrorism. Only one person from the original case is still alive and Clay will have to find him in Alaska. Back to Faraday, he makes to the airport and tries to buy a ticket with an ID he stole from the taxi driver. Suddenly he starts feeling very sick and the electronics in the area start malfunctioning. The radiation coming from the luggage scanner is causing this, so he tries running away while bumping against everyone. The guards quickly surround him as Faraday falls to his knees to vomit tons of water. Then the cops call Justin since Faraday named her his emergency contact and she frees him from the airport with a mental health excuse. On their way out, Faraday insists that everything she saw is real and he needs her help because she's a specialist in nuclear fusion plasma modeling. Justin has a breakdown and agrees to take him to a bus station, but nothing else. First they stop at the rehab center to pick up Josiah, and Faraday interacts with old people, wondering why humans keep the elderly around if they're useless. In Alaska, Clay is forced to leave his car behind to cross a forest. After lots of wandering he finds a house, only for an old man to hit him and knock him out. When he wakes up, Clay is tied to a chair. The old man is Gregory, who checks his eyes and cuts his arm for any hidden chips. Then Gregory confirms he's the man from the file, but he hits Clay before rushing to wash away his sins. Clay starts talking about the case and shares that the tornado with the signal happened again, but this only causes Gregory to freak out and threaten him with a knife. He starts talking a bunch of nonsense about the war and suddenly has a breakdown, mentioning Thomas' name and some film while claiming that humans made Thomas a psychopath. When Gregory is close enough, Clay headbutts him and throws himself back to break the chair. Gregory then announces he can't stand the idea of a second alien and grabs his gun to self-delete. That night Faraday has dinner with Justin's family and is confused because they're science people yet they still pray. Faraday also says that the family would be better without Josiah, who is nothing but a burden. An annoyed Justin asks her neighbor to take care of Molly so she can take Faraday to the bus station. While she's away, Faraday finds a sleeping Josiah and grabs him by the neck, using some energy to make him convulse. Seeing the lights flicker, Justin runs back to her house expecting the worst, only to discover that Faraday has healed Josiah. This has left Faraday weak on the ground. A flashback goes back to 2017. The higher-ups at Origen found Thomas' mysterious 10th patent in Hatch's personal computer disguised as a food bill. Hatch swore he didn't steal anything and that he was only trying to save the company that his dad took from Thomas, but he was still fired by his own sister Edie. In the present, Justin and Josiah rush to take Faraday to the bathroom for water and are surprised by how little he weighs. After drinking, Faraday starts convulsing and expelling a weird black substance, which floats up and disappears into the ventilation. The next morning Justin is amazed to see Josiah doing better and he convinces her to take Faraday to Seattle. Before they leave, he gives Faraday his old suit. During the trip Faraday explains they need to get into Origen's vault and find Thomas' 10th project to build it. Justin wonders how they're supposed to build anything with no resources, so Faraday makes her stop the truck. He approaches a broken oil derrick and takes a look inside, then he extracts a glowing device from himself and inserts it into the machine. This causes the derrick to immediately start working. This technology was designed by Thomas based on cold fusion and has no radiation or decay, but sadly Faraday has to take it back since it's what brought him here and he needs it to go back. It has limited power, so they need the 10th design for its power to be limitless. That design will power his planet and bring water back. It's also what Justin almost discovered a few years ago before the scientific community looked down on her work. In the evening, Justin and Faraday stay in a motel. Faraday enjoys the pool while telling Justin about the awful conditions of his planet, predicting the same will happen to Earth by 2030. Justin agrees to help but asks him to leave the blueprints on Earth so humanity can fix things too. In Alaska, Clay searches the house and finds an old projector plus a film hidden in the furniture. He watches it and notices a young Gregory in 1984. They're recording something called Project Icarus, in which they're hurting a young Thomas to get the 10th design out of him. They left Thomas blind and removed his face trying to find his alien's parts. Afterward Clay sets the house on fire and leaves with the film. When he returns to the USA, he tells Finch everything and convinces her to give him resources to go search for Thomas, who has been missing for years. Then he meets with Lisa, who intercepted the last signal. After they throw passive-aggressive comments at each other, he convinces her to join his team and asks her to start searching for Thomas. Later in Seattle, Hatch is found by Justin and Faraday. They show him the equation on the napkin and explain Thomas sent them to find him, but Hatch doesn't believe them and drives away. However, when Thomas compares the napkin to some documents at home, he confirms it's the real deal and goes looking for the duo. They tell him the truth about Thomas and Hatch passes out from the shock. When he wakes up, he freaks out because cold fusion would cause the energy industry to collapse and destroy the economy. Faraday calms him down and reminds him humans know how to adapt. Over breakfast, Hatch explains Origen moved to London and now Faraday wants to travel there. Since Faraday has no IDs, Hatch offers to get in contact with a friend that will lend them a private plane. Soon the trio is flying, but Justin and Hatch freak out when they see Faraday's face getting swollen. Hatch tells the stewardess that Faraday only has an allergy and keeps her away until they land. In London, the group attends a party where scientists present their latest projects for possible funding. They hope that if Faraday presents his equation, they'll get access to Origen. Hatch approaches Edie and tries to convince her to give Faraday a chance, but she won't unless her brother admits he stole from the company. When it's time for the presentations, Faraday interrupts another scientist to correct his mistakes. Everyone judges him until he announces he's brought cold fusion. The room falls silent while Faraday takes out his device and powers up the entire city. Later Justin finds herself sitting at the piano with her husband when he suddenly starts bleeding and losing his teeth. Then he starts vomiting and Justin freaks out, only to wake from this nightmare. When she checks the news, she discovers Faraday has gone viral. Soon lots of gifts start arriving to the hotel room from every tech company in the world. However, Faraday is angry because nobody remembers Thomas and his inventions, which allowed humanity to have internet. Meanwhile, Clive argues with her mother Edie until she agrees to call Hatch, wanting their company to get Faraday's deal. Back to Clay, he and Lisa watch the viral videos people have been taking of Faraday whenever they see him on the street. Lisa has also found the video of him vomiting in the airport and made the tech team check the power surge in London, confirming technology of that kind doesn't exist on Earth. Lastly, she discovered that Thomas used to have a companion called Mary. Clay immediately visits the rehab center she works at and pretends he needs help for his mother to meet Sister Mary. After she gets his help with a cow giving birth, Mary admits she can tell Clay is lying, so he finally mentions Thomas. Taking this as a sign, Mary hugs Clay, but sadly she doesn't know where Thomas is. Then she proceeds to cover her skin with honey to attract the bees. Sometime later, Faraday's group arrives at Edie's home. Hatch and Justin try to do all the negotiation, but Edie can't stop staring at Faraday and is suspicious. When Faraday asks about Thomas, Clive mentions he has some music Thomas left behind and Faraday wants to hear it. In private, Edie tells Clive to use this chance to get information out of Faraday. The negotiations continue and Edie keeps attacking Justin, mentioning how she failed her last project. Justin begins thinking about the death of her husband and almost has a panic attack, so she asks for a break and rushes out. In another room, Faraday keeps asking about Thomas' music. Clive starts smoking, and when the smoke hits Faraday's face, he begins feeling hot and dizzy. The teen refuses to bring out Thomas' music until Faraday tells him more about himself, but Faraday can sense another device and takes a sphere out of Clive's pocket. He starts playing the recording and realizes this is Thomas' goodbye message to his wife, who was left behind in Anthea. In this message, Thomas talks about darkness and losing himself. At the same time, Mary tells Clay that Thomas had a wife but she still wanted him, so back then she got him drunk and made him do the naughty with her. This left Thomas broken, so Mary begs Clay to protect the new visitor from going insane too. Clay leaves and gets a call from Lisa, who has been tracking Faraday's movements in London. She's discovered that Edie's father made a deal with the CIA the same year Thomas disappeared. Back to Faraday, he finishes translating the message in tears while the horses go crazy outside to the point they crack the window. Furious over the fact humans managed to break such a brilliant man, Faraday throws the sphere at the glass, breaking it all. Clive and the horses run away in fear while Justin comes to check on Faraday, who is having a breakdown because he's not used to feeling another person's pain. Justin has to explain what empathy is and promises to help him through the end. Meanwhile, Edie and Hatch start arguing over their father again, which makes Edie realize her brother only wants Thomas' 10th. Edie tells Hatch there's no deal and kicks him out. Then she goes to see the latest visitor, who happens to be Clay. He explains that the CIA scared Thomas away and chose her father to handle Ori Gen because he was an easily manipulated man. Now that Edie is in charge, she must keep up the deal with the CIA, and that means taking Hatch's offer. Afterward, the negotiation continues with Clay, who pretends to be a consultant. Hatch wants more money for Faraday's invention, so Edie uses the information Clay brought her to fight back. It turns out Justin killed her husband with a lethal dose of radiation because she didn't wait for the safety approval. She did achieve fusion, but the whole experiment was sealed because of this incident. Edie refuses to work with her, however Faraday announces that if they don't hire Justin then he leaves too. Now the company has no choice but to hire the whole trio. A flashback shows Faraday taking the device and saying goodbye to his family, promising to come back. In the present, Justin announces she's leaving for 3 days to pick up her family. Faraday protests and says the mission is more important, but Justin ignores him. Afterward, Faraday and Hatch go to the research center, where a special team is waiting for them. Faraday ignores them and goes directly to the abandoned building where Thomas used to work. A machine rises from the ground, revealing all of Thomas' designs. Faraday immediately puts the team to work like crazy and even asks them to get dynamite to make a huge hole in the floor. In a secret room, Clay and Lisa spy on them. Soon the workers get annoyed with Faraday because he wants them to be so productive that he even controls their bathroom breaks and expects them to sleep in the lab. Thankfully, Hatch cuts in and convinces Faraday that humans need to rest to function. Soon the first outer shield is built, and when Faraday turns on its lights, its electromagnetic fields immediately block all of Lisa's spy equipment. After the team leaves for the day, Faraday admits to Hatch that there are things in Thomas' design that he doesn't understand and he's worried they may not finish building this in time. Later, while Faraday is sampling water, he's approached by Watt, who used to work with Thomas. She explains nobody ever truly understood Thomas' ideas, but if someone will be able to do it, it's Faraday. Eventually Justin gets her family settled down in London. Josiah takes Molly for a walk and suddenly senses something that causes him to push the girl out of the way. To Molly's shock, 2 cars crash where she was about to step on. Meanwhile, Hatch is doing an interview online and notices static taking over the screen sometimes. Hatch runs to see Edie and accuses her of bugging his office, so Clay cuts in and finally admits he's CIA. He's told Edie that Thomas and Faraday are aliens and he theorizes that they've come to destroy humanity. The CIA's deal with the company is to let them work until they have enough evidence to arrest them. Clay also forbids Hatch from telling anyone about this, including Justin. At home, Faraday sees Molly playing with her toys without following the instructions and says she's going to fail. Molly gets upset and a furious Justin kicks Faraday out. Then Josiah reveals he's brought Justin's old research and convinces her to use it. As he wanders around, Faraday keeps thinking about the day he left his planet. Eventually he finds Watt, who admits that Thomas told her he was an alien and guesses Faraday is one too. She takes him to a bar for a drink and shares all the things Thomas taught her. Years ago, Anthea and Earth collided in space and each planet absorbed a part of the other. This is why Earth's core is too big and why half of the Anthea population evolved into a new race by unleashing their inner humanity. Thomas understood this, so if Faraday wants to understand his design, he must become more human too. Afterward, Faraday takes Watt to the lab and gets scared when black smoke suddenly bursts through the door, but it's just visions caused by the alcohol. Watt wants Faraday to learn human emotions and tries destroying the shell, causing Faraday to push her away. She's glad to see him angry and keeps taunting him as she slaps him, so Faraday throws her against a machine. Watt just laughs and keeps breaking things, which allows Lisa to regain access to the cameras. Faraday starts losing it and throws Watt on the ground, ready to beat her up. However, he sees his own reflection and realizes she isn't real. He's been drunk all along. The memory of leaving his planet returns and he realizes that what he saw out there matches the equation. By putting the transparent boards together, Faraday finally understands Thomas' diagram. The next morning, Faraday goes to see Justin to drop the big news. In return, Justin reveals her research may be the fuel they need for the machine. Then Faraday apologizes to Molly and learns that sometimes it's fine to start building things without a goal in mind. A few weeks later, Faraday returns to the lab and records a message for his wife explaining the wonders of human emotion. He's been conducting many experiments to learn to think like them, and he's amazed by the fact they can have choices because on his planet people are stuck on the role they're born into without the chance of having preferences. Faraday is amazed by many things, from the little rituals humans have like dinner and praying to the 1,000 types of coffee. He loves feeling humans' joy and wishes he could share that with his own family, even if the price is also feeling things like fear, shame, and grief. Faraday is also worried about Josiah, who sometimes walks away in a dazed state before improvising something like dancing in the living room. Justin continues working with the team to finish her old research, keeping their mood up whenever they feel their goal is impossible. Meanwhile, Finch comes to London to explain that the higher-ups want Clay out because there's been no results, but Clay convinces her Faraday is almost done and he gets one more week. Afterward, he meets with Lisa, who has discovered the tornado was artificially created and its signal came from Southeast Asia. She's also found the flight attendant from Faraday's private flight. After Clay leaves, Lisa makes a call to announce there's a problem. In the meantime, Edie visits Hatch and explains she wants to sell Origen to an oil magnate named Thorne because he's the only one with the power to protect them from the CIA. Later, while Josiah is taking Molly to school, he suddenly enters a music shop and starts playing the guitar even though he doesn't know how. When a string breaks, he passes out. At the hospital, the doctors tells Justin that Josiah had a small stroke but he's fine. He's in fact so healthy that the doctors would like to study him, but Justin refuses and takes him away. At the lab, Faraday is frustrated because they still can't finish the machine and throws things to the ground in a tantrum. At that moment, Justin arrives and kicks the team out before demanding an explanation. Faraday confesses that he shared his DNA with Josiah and it's now rewriting his genetic code, but he doesn't know what the final result will be. Hatch hears their argument and announces he knows a doctor they can trust. Then he goes to see his ex Teddy and apologizes for disappearing for years before sharing Josiah's file. Teddy is shocked by a sickness disappearing and agrees to help. At the park, Clay approaches the flight attendant and shows her his badge, threatening her with horrible things until she talks. She explains that Faraday asked if the cabin was pressurized and the effect it had on his skin. Clay uses this information to narrow the search for Thomas. At home, Josiah feels Faraday's frustration and goes for a walk, finding a wasp nest under a bridge and almost causing a traffic accident. Justin is immediately called, and when she returns home, she finds Josiah writing complex equations on the wall while mumbling to himself. Teddy comes to check on him and confirms Josiah has a perfectly healthy body, so his issues are mental. Soon Faraday also comes and tries to take the pages Josiah wrote, causing him to get violent. Justin kicks him out, blaming him for changing her father. Later, Faraday reads The Little Prince and realizes it's all been a problem of perspective. He and Josiah have been reacting to the machine in different ways. He runs back to the house and explains that Josiah translated Justin's equation into sound frequencies like bees use and wrote a song with it. They had thought that they needed a supercomputer to understand Thomas' work, but it turns out that supercomputer is jazz. Josiah is taken to the lab and given a piano, which he plays to make the machine work. Faraday joins him when it looks like they're about to lose the right frequency, and by fixing the tempo, the machine finally powers up. Soon all the buildings in the area are glowing too. In the evening, Lisa finds Teddy and quickly brings him down to steal Josiah's medical files. Then she reports to Clay, saying that by following Josiah's health needs she's narrowed down Thomas' location to Cambodia, where the drones have found an underground cement bunker in the middle of the jungle. Afterward, Clay confronts Hatch and says he has proof he tried stealing the patent years ago to blackmail him. The next day, Clay gives Finch an update and she forbids him from going to Cambodia because he doesn't have enough proof. However, he tells Lisa he got permission and they send a team anyway. Soldiers enter the building and find it empty except for a bunch of plants. Suddenly they hear screeching and the plants wake up to release a toxic dust that quickly kills the whole team by making their heads explode. The terrified soldiers open fire before dying, causing a small explosion. Lisa finds power lines laid out of the bunker and starts tracking their destination. Meanwhile, Hatch and Edie go to the oil company to try to get a deal for Origen, using the fact oil won't be useful anymore as a good reason to invest in them. At home, Josiah reveals he's getting back old memories but slowly forgetting feelings. He asks to be taken to the lab so he can keep on helping. He also notices that his fingerprints and his accent are disappearing. It's clear that he's becoming a new type of Anthian. Later, Justin and Hatch have a meeting with Edie and her team, who don't want to launch the machine yet. Justin makes Clay some question and suspects he isn't a scientist, so Edie cancels the meeting. Clay gets a call from Finch, who scolds him because he's gotten them in trouble with a foreign government and now the CIA committee wants to interrogate him, so he must return to Washington. Justin runs to warn Faraday that the government may be onto them and takes her father away. Then Faraday blocks Lisa's cameras and contacts Thomas, who is angry because the CIA has found his bunker. Faraday yells back at him, furious because Thomas didn't leave better instructions as guidance. Thomas is happy that Faraday has learned to have emotions and tells him now he needs to learn to lie. He regrets staying hidden, so he advises Faraday to become a legend because fame can't be killed. After the transmission ends, Faraday sees Lisa entering the lab and she pretends she's security just checking on him. Next, Faraday goes home and tells Justin that they need to go public about their experiment because the CIA loves silence. Sometime later, Justin and Faraday meet with Hatch's journalist friend. Faraday shares a fake backstory to pretend he's human and tells the journalist about a new energy source that the CIA is trying to hide. The journalist agrees to write the story as long as she gets to see the lab for proof. The following day, Edie receives some secret information about Clay. He used to work for immigration and put kids in cages, but he's also emerged from a witness protection program. Meanwhile, Clay is being interrogated by the committee and Finch is furious to learn he's faked her signature. When she's about to take away her support, Clay tells the committee that Finch has the film of Thomas' torture and she kept it secret from them. This makes it seem like she's lying about the signature being faked and she sent the team to Cambodia to cover up her own lies. After she walks out, Clay convinces the committee to give him permission to finish his case. At the same time, Lisa secretly brings Justin to her spying room and explains they want Thomas, not Faraday. She plays a recording of the Cambodia incident and offers a deal. If Justin takes her to Thomas, she promises to protect Faraday and the project. Lisa also tells her that Faraday talked to Thomas to make him look like a liar with a secret conspiracy. Justin immediately goes to tell all this to Faraday, who swears his species isn't capable of killing. That night, Edie informs Hatch that she's sealed the deal and they'll launch the machine soon, but she hasn't told the CIA. Later, Clay visits Edie and shares that his mother came to America from Russia, but she turned out to be a terrorist. She blew up the building where she worked and abandoned her son, who was found by Finch when she was on the case. Clay then tells Edie that if she goes looking into his past again, she'll regret it. Back to Faraday, he disconnects all of Lisa's cameras and hacks into her system to lock her up. Then he finds the footage from the Cambodian incident and a message that Thomas is constantly sending to Anthea. When he's done, he goes to Justin's home, where he plays some music and closes the curtains because he saw a man outside spying on them. Then he tells Justin that Thomas lied to him. His real goal is to bring the Anthians to Earth. Faraday still wants to help humanity, but Justin's priority is to hide everything and sends Molly to stay with a friend for a while. Then Justin, Josiah, and Faraday go to the lab to start disassembling the machine and destroying the diagrams. Lisa alerts Clay, who gathers a team of agents to go to the lab too. Josiah and Justin escape with the machine core while Faraday stays to wait for the CIA. Once Clay and his men come inside, Faraday triggers a bomb and causes a huge explosion at the same time that the CIA shoots him. Worried, Justin drives back and Josiah picks up Faraday's body, which is seen by Clay. Soon Edie and Hatch arrive at the lab, where Clay is making his men gather the remaining machine pieces. When Edie demands an explanation, Clay slaps her, so Edie quickly slaps him back and calls him incompetent. Then Clay reveals that Hatch tried to sell the patent to the oil company years ago and kicks the siblings out, threatening to arrest them if they show up again. Meanwhile, Justin's group steals a car to avoid being tracked. Faraday is losing lots of blood and tells Justin to take them to Mary's place. The center's vet starts treating Faraday's wound and is startled by his very unusual anatomy, so Mary tells her that Faraday is an angel. The vet successfully removes the bullet and closes the wound. Clay starts losing his mind when his men can't find Faraday and Lisa decides to blackmail him, threatening to tell their bosses about the Finch lie. This convinces him to make her fellow mission leader. Then a CIA team searches Justin's house and Lisa finds a clue, which she only shares with her mysterious contact. At a private club, Hatch meets with a businessman from the oil company who wants to buy as part of Origen. Hatch doesn't understand why they would want a destroyed lab, but he agrees as long as they send some money to Edie too. In the morning, Faraday is still weak, so Josiah volunteers to make a transfusion. This will kill him, but he thinks it's necessary to save the world. Justin calls her daughter to check on her, and the call is tracked by the CIA. Then she shares a final dance with her dad as goodbye before the transfusion begins. The girls will try giving Josiah some blood while he gives his to Faraday, hoping he can survive too. At that moment Clay arrives with 2 mercenaries he hired to do this off the books. As soon as they step on the garden, Mary and a girl open fire and Clay gets hurt. A shootout ensues and soon they're running out of bullets, so Mary goes looking for more. This allows the men to knock the girl down and enter the house. Clay finds Mary praying and she calls him Judas before he shoots her. Hearing the shot, Justin comes out and is cornered by Clay, who disarms her and takes her to the transfusion room. The mercenaries have found the core, so Clay makes them knock Justin out and bring her together with Faraday, leaving Josiah behind. After the group leaves, Mary drags her body to Josiah and holds his hand before dying. In the morning, Edie meets with Finch to make a new deal with the CIA. Afterward she bumps into Clive and notices how awkward he still behaves, so she shoots a sick horse in front of him to remind him this family doesn't allow weaklings. Feeling betrayed, Clive goes to see Hatch and reveals that Edie killed their father by pushing him off a cliff and later made it look like self-deletion. It was actually Hatch who was supposed to be CEO. At the same time mysterious men find Molly and Justin's friend. Faraday and Justin are taken to an abandoned building and tied to chairs before Clay pushes them down. A scared Faraday translates Thomas' message and tells Clay about the real plan. Then Clay tells Lisa to take Justin in another room and get the formula that activates the core while he finds out more about the aliens. Clay starts hurting Faraday with tools, however Faraday doesn't feel pain done to his human disguise. In the other room Lisa threatens to hurt Molly, but Justin doesn't believe her and says she's no better than Clay, for which Lisa slaps her before running out. Next the mercenaries try waterboarding, but Faraday loves to drink it all with his 4 stomachs. Lisa reminds Clay of the airport incident and they bring an X-ray machine, which causes Faraday a lot of pain. He starts puking and screaming, which is heard by Justin. As Clay tries to interrogate him, Faraday sees Watt again and she reminds him to use all the things he's found on the internet. Faraday reveals he knows Clay's past and a terrified Clay hits him before threatening to kill Justin if Faraday doesn't talk. With Watt's guidance, Faraday thinks about all of Thomas' plans and realizes there must be a spaceship hidden somewhere to bring the Anthians over since a whole group can't travel using the same method as him. Thomas wanted them to build the core to power that ship. Then Faraday calls Clay by his real name and Clay kicks everyone else out of the room. Faraday keeps talking, explaining he hacked into the CIA system and can tell him the truth about his mother if Clay agrees to play Russian roulette. At first Clay refuses, but Faraday activates the X-ray machine again. Clay immediately stops him because the X-rays are killing him and agrees to play. The first 3 shots miss, so Faraday reveals that Clay's mother was a common thief and the CIA used her to cover an explosion they caused. That operation was led by Finch, who was also part of the team that tortured Thomas. Clay starts losing his mind over the betrayal and almost shoots Faraday, but Lisa arrives and shoots Clay first. In the other room a mercenary is guarding Justin. When he lights a cigarette, Justin reveals she took some gas from a can nearby and spits it at him, setting his head on fire. Then she runs out to free Faraday while Lisa contacts her mysterious friend. Soon a bunch of cars arrive, revealing that Lisa has been working for the oil company all along. These men also have Molly and let Justin talk to her. Molly is back at their house with guards protecting every entrance. They've also rescued Josiah, who is sick again because of the transfusion. The company men offer Justin money and protection for the rest of her life if she agrees to activate the core. Afterward the duo is blindfolded and taken to a mysterious cave in Cambodia full of Buddhist monks. There they meet the oil magnate, who turns out to be Thomas. This makes Faraday remember the day Thomas left his planet with a bunch of seeds, promising to return soon. In the present, Thomas explains he planted all the seeds in the cave in exchange for shelter and learning to pray. This area is a complete magnetic anomaly, which is why no scanner or drone could find him. Thanks to this protection he's been able to build and hide a spaceship among the trees. Faraday notices the ship isn't enough for all the remaining Anthians and Thomas admits he only planned to bring the better class even though they destroyed Anthea in the first place. This also means they would make humans their new servants. Thomas insists merging both races is their only chance to survive, yet Justin is against it. She altered the core's algorithm before they left the lab and is asked to activate it, but she furiously walks away. Meanwhile Finch and Lisa close the case with their boss, who reads on the report that Clay self-deleted. Lisa realizes Finch altered the report and now Finch blackmails her into keeping an eye on Justin. Back to Faraday, he goes after Justin and asks her to unlock the core, promising to protect her family because he loves them. Tired, Justin gives him the new algorithm so she can finally go home. Afterward the whole family returns to the USA and tries to have a normal life again. 3 months later, Lisa visits Justin to apologize for everything, and in return Justin tells her that Thomas was the oil magnate all along. Later Justin hears a noise and finds Faraday's old device beeping, so she follows it to the middle of the desert. There she finds a hurricane and walks into it without hesitation. Meanwhile the journalist finally writes a story about Ori Gen and it goes viral. With Edie's support, Faraday appears on a theater full of people and shares his whole story. At that moment a bunch of CIA agents enter the theater and Faraday tells the public that the government is hiding all this from them. Before he can be shot, He opens a box with the cold fusion device and he powers up the entire city. Moments later, the agents take Faraday to the CIA office, where he discovers they've also arrested his friends. However, Faraday is still calm as he reveals that Thomas gave him control of Ori-Gen and he plans to pass the company to Hatch and Justin. He wants the CIA to release the three of them and give the Anthians permission to come to Earth. If they don't, then in 12 hours a software he already programmed will distribute the cold fusion formula to the whole world for free, destroying the economy. Finch tries to turn the others against Faraday, but Justin uses the chance to ask for Lisa instead of Finch if the CIA wants to keep up negotiations. Finch is furious, but her bosses make the change anyway. A few hours later Faraday visits Thomas, who laughs when he hears that Faraday will bring every single Anthian yet doesn't plan to slave the humans. Thomas thinks this will destroy Earth faster, but also admits he's proud of Faraday. Then he lets the CIA arrest him since it was part of the deal. Afterward Faraday shares a goodbye kiss with Justin before finally leaving on the spaceship to rescue his people. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.